Welcome back, everyone. Today, we're taking a look at the best Pokemon fan games and ROM hacks released or updated in February of 2025. Keep in mind that this is a monthly series where I showcase and shortly review all the newest Pokemon fan projects. So you're definitely going to want to subscribe to not miss out on a singular one. So let's start off strong with a ROM hack that takes you through a brand new region with a new story. This is Pokemon Wings of Chaos, and in this hack, you'll play as a brand new trainer who has just arrived in the tropical region of Mario, made up of 3 different islands. Your goal will be to defeat the gym leaders of each island in preparation for the Silver Wing Festival, a celebration to honor the legendary Pokemon Lugia. Despite such a simple sounding story, there are a ton of different characters and plot points that made the story quite enjoyable. But outside of the main story, the hack has a huge focus on exploration, with tons of optional areas and side quests that can all be tracked very easily. I had a lot of fun exploring the region and playing through the story, which was mostly thanks to the use of a custom art style inspired by the Generation 3 games. But the fun doesn't stop there, as the Pokemon side of the gameplay is also incredible. As you travel through the region, you'll find it to be filled to the brim with Pokemon from all 9 generations, and even a handful of regional variants. I was able to build a full team of Pokemon I liked before even a single one of them reached level 20, and it somehow gets even better with a ton of quality of life systems such as the EXP All, HMs replaced by key items, and even a mover learner, deleter, and time-changing feature at every Pokemon Center. There are even a handful of buffs to some weaker Pokemon that bring them up to par with the rest of the ones currently in the game. As for the difficulty, it sat in a very nice place where the battles weren't very hard, but offered just enough challenge to keep me interested. Overall, Wings of Chaos is an amazing ROM hack that I can't wait to see updated in the future, as the current version takes you to about the halfway point of the second island. So if playing through an unfinished project doesn't bother you, I highly suggest giving it a go. The next hack that was updated this month is Polished Crystal. And it's exactly what the name implies, a much more polished version of Pokemon Crystal. But I'm sure you're also wondering what separates this hack from other Generation 2 enhancement hacks. First of all, this hack has a plethora of graphical improvements that really took me by surprise, including new tiles, type icons in battle, unique party icons for every Pokemon, and a town map based on the remakes. I know they might seem small and trivial, but I'm a huge fan of simple yet effective visual updates. But of course, this is still an enhancement hack, so what truly matters to most people is the gameplay. Various Pokemon have received base stat changes based on Sacred Gold and Storm Silver, as well as multiple HMs and other incredibly weak moves being buffed, like Cut now being a 60 power Seal type move. Additionally, tons of new moves from future generations have also been added, with every Pokemon's learn sets being updated to Generation 6. But this hack just had a brand new update that brings tons of new features, like a collection of game customization options and an overhauled battle engine that introduces new move animations, working abilities, and much more. There are so many features and improvements in this hack, and while I don't have the time to showcase all of them, I will say that it definitely lives up to the name of being the most polished Pokemon Crystal experience, without changing too much about the base game. Let's move on to this time a Pokemon fan game set in a brand new region with a new story. This is Pokemon Victory, and I'll be the first to admit that this game is a bit of a mixed bag in terms of its quality. Starting with the positives, the new region of Gyore is filled to the brim with different people, Pokemon, and tons of different areas with different trainer and wild battle soundtracks for each of them. The world is really detailed, and other than a few out-of-place buildings or tiles, the maps all look pretty good. There are over 900 Pokemon to capture from all 9 generations, and between the mix of overworld and regular tall grass encounters, you'll find it very easy to build a full team of the ones you like. As for the story, it follows a brand new Pokemon trainer just recently arriving in the region. You will have the unoriginal goal of collecting gym badges, but there definitely is an attempt to differentiate the story from those of the mainline games, which is something you'll see when you go to pick your first Pokemon. As for what I didn't like, there was a big feeling of incompleteness in a lot of the game's content, and I'm not just talking about how it's currently only a demo. A lot of events and sprites felt out of place, and a lot of UIs felt unfinished. Not to mention the game's huge file size, due to the unnecessarily long and uncut audio files. But honestly, they aren't issues that will hold back your enjoyment of the game. And from my experience, the project feels like it was put together with tons of love and enjoyment from the devs themselves. So I think the game has a ton of potential if some attention is brought to these issues. But even in its current state, I still think you'll have a pretty fun time playing through it. I'm sure after so many fan games and ROM hacks, you're probably tired of using the same canon Pokemon over and over again. So let me introduce you to Pokemon Comet, a beautiful fan game with tons of new regional forms. However, since I have covered this game in the past, feel free to skip to the timestamp on screen if you only want to know about the newest update. In Pokemon Comet, you'll begin your journey as a brand new trainer who has just arrived in the region to work for the professor that's researching the recently discovered species of fallen Pokemon, which are basically regional variants of existing Pokemon. What separates this game's regionals from many others is just how different they feel from their base forms. Barely any of them share the same stats, move pools, or even typings as their originals. Not to mention they also just look really cool. And also, unlike many projects with regional forms, they feel a lot more rewarding and meaningful to capture, as they mostly reside in hidden areas rather than just appearing in the tall grass. Outside of the new forms, the region of Zyro is a very beautiful place, with tons of different routes and towns that won't feel very similar to any of the ones you'll have previously explored. And thanks to the enhanced Generation 3 art style, the world retains a nostalgic feeling while still looking incredibly visually appealing. As for the story, it does start off pretty slow, but it eventually picks up and does a great job of separating itself from many other fan games, despite it still using the classic gym formula. However, if you're wondering if there's anything new since I last covered it, then you're in luck, because it was just updated at the beginning of this month. This new update includes a continuation of the story that takes you to the third gym, 25 new regional forms, new side quests, and a brand new world that seems to be the home of these new regional forms. So if you're a fan of alternate forms, and don't mind playing through an unfinished game, then definitely check out Pokemon Comet. Now, before we continue, I decided to include a new honorable mention segment in this series that quickly covers a handful of new projects that are either currently too short or just don't meet the quality standards I try to reach in these videos. However, they're still ones I think people could find enjoyment in playing, so I thought it wouldn't hurt to cover them. The first one is Slow Pink. It's a pretty simple hack that replaces the Hoenn region's Pokedex with Pokemon Yellow's. So you'll begin your adventure with the choice of Pikachu, Eevee, or Slowpoke, and then build your team out of Kanto Pokemon. It includes followers, the EXP All, and a new UI for the pause menu and the party and bag screens. There are also a handful of other modern changes, like the physical special split, fairy type, modern learn sets, and reusable TMs. But it doesn't really change the story or the overworld, so keep that in mind if you choose to play it. This next hack is a bit more interesting. It's called Pseudo Red, and it replaces the Kanto Pokedex with over 200 new Pokemon fusions. They don't work like the Infinite Fusion ones, where you can fuse and unfuse Pokemon, but instead kind of just act like regional variants. They were still pretty cool, and there was even a bit of remapping that adds tall grass to the towns to fill your Nuzlocking desires. However, it's still barely edited Kanto, and while there is a bit of difficulty increase, the level curve remains the same as the default games, leaving you pretty underleveled for the earlier gym battles, so again, keep that in mind if you choose to play it. The final, and in my opinion, the best honorable mention here, is Pokemon Terragon. It's It's a ROM hack with a new story, new region, new tiles, new UIs, and an absolutely massive Pokemon variety. So why not give it its own segment? What makes it an honorable mention? Well, it's just really short. It's currently only a 1 gym demo that'll only take you about 30 minutes to an hour to complete, yet it really felt like it had a lot of potential, especially with its unique starter options and pretty battle backgrounds, so I do hope to return to it in the future. Alright, so this next game is a bit of a last minute addition, as it was just released the same day I was originally planning to wrap up this video, but after playing it, I had so much fun that I just couldn't help but include it for all of you to see as well. In Pokemon Ecclesia, you'll travel through the brand new region of Febuary, a place where time and space intertwine in unsuspected ways. You do of course play as a Pokemon trainer, on a journey to defeat gym leaders and become the very best. But on this journey, you'll find your way into a conflict with the Ordonian cult, a group that pursues a power that defies the very laws of reality. This is something that's displayed very well in the world, with ghostly figures and tons of other weird occurrences. You won't be in this alone though, as you'll be joined by a cast of different characters that I found to be a positive light in such a dark and depressing world. I think my favorite part about this game would have to be the region and overworld environment. I was a bit skeptical about it at first, with the structures and objects lacking proper outlines, but I quickly realized just how uniquely put together it is. Routes can feel either bright and hopeful or dark and hopeless. And that's mostly thanks to the amazing music choices and the nature of the people that inhabit them. The routes are filled to the brim with a variety of different Pokemon, spanning across all 9 generations. I was able to build a full team before I even reached the 2nd gym. But this game is no short of quality of life either, with features like the EXP All, the Pokevial, a limited use item that fully heals your entire team and can be recharged for free at any Pokemon Center, and a Pokedex that displays the stats and learnable moves of all the ones you've captured. Overall, Ecclesia is an incredible fan game, and as its current version goes up to the 7th gym, there's already a ton of content to be enjoyed. And finally, is probably the highest quality project on this list. This is Pokemon Shinobi, a fan game that takes place in the world of Naruto. In my experience, fan games and ROM hacks based on an anime series are usually pretty low quality or effortlessly put together, but this one was actually pretty well made. It follows a story pretty similar to the mainline games, with the goal being to challenge 8 clan houses instead of gym leaders. It does have a lot more charm to it though, with tons of characters whose personalities are conveyed using very well made mugshots, and of course the whole ninja theme. You'll begin your journey by picking one of 3 Fakemon starters, and then build a team of Pokemon from the first 8 generations, with a handful of new regional variants as well. And your team will be very easy to put together, thanks to the very early EXP All. But my favorite part about the game was probably the region. Not only is it incredibly well put together, the routes and towns contrast each other very well, and you'll quickly find yourself going from a bustling city to a rocky mountain and even a snowy forest. Of course, it's not perfect, as there are definitely translation and graphical issues in a few places, as well as the writing feeling a bit off at times in ways I wouldn't exactly fault the translator for. However, it's still a very fun game. And even in its current state, with only 4 gym badges, there's still a ton of content to be played through. That's all I have for you today though. I hope you enjoyed the video, and of course, be sure to subscribe for more Pokemon fan game and ROM hack content. I'd also really like to thank my first 2 channel members. I currently don't have much to provide in return, but it's something I'm definitely working on, and I'd still really appreciate any support you'd like to provide me as a creator. Anyways, have a nice rest of your day, and goodbye!